David, how the heck you been, bro?
Awesome. Hey, doing really well. Had a good break across the Christmas, New Year,
Good.
and yeah, feel real refreshed coming into 2023, smoking.
I love it, man. That makes me happy right there,
Yeah.
brother. That makes me happy. Are you traveling? What's your travel schedule look like, bro? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm off tomorrow. I'm actually interstate tomorrow. I'm doing 3 days at the Australian Prophetic Summit. I sit on one of my roles is I sit on the national leadership of a council of Australian prophets. So we convene every year for 3 days and just kind of hot house with one another. Um, word of the Lord, what we feel like God's doing, that sort of thing. Strategize around what to, the prophetic movement, how to mature it, how to see it integrated into the life flow of the body in the nation. So we kind of take a nation look at it. So that's kind of there. But later in the year, I'm just setting up now. I've got clients in Europe. So probably around the middle of the year, I'm going to do the whole Eastern Europe, Italy, Netherlands, Czech Republic, Budapest, Hungary. So I'll do a bunch of I call them kingdom influencers seminars. I'll do that and call in on my business clients there. And then I've got a trip somewhere between then and sort of August into Kenya, Nairobi. There's a guy that was at ICAL, David Juma. He runs I think he runs the iCal version in Nairobi. There's got a really television. It's got a television station.
Very good.
Very sort of significant work there. So I'll go and do a little bit of work with him, and we've got. Hope you see. We've got two kind of mega churches, white collar mega churches in Hyderabad and Secunderabad in India. Kind of like not I mean, it's full of Indians, but these are university trained,
Nice.
executives, that sort of, it's not country India. So I'll go and do a business seminar with them. And then the other thought is in November, when I come to ICAL, I've got a guy up in Canada called Derek Snyder, who runs a thing there called History Makers Academy. He's a senior minister, only a young guy, probably a little younger than I am. And he does these 3-day transformational seminars for marketplace people. So the thought, I think, is I'm going to go there probably before ICAL, do something with him in the city, and then come to ICAL. I've got a client there in Rockwell, Texas, that wants me to do maybe a private retreat with some business people, which I might do on the other side of ICAL. So that's kind of the year travel wise, and I'll probably duck over to New Zealand as well.
Very good, man.
Yeah,
Very good. So
yeah,
when you're doing consulting, bro, tell me. I know we talked a little bit at iCal, but I wanted to
yeah,
kind of get a little more familiar with everything you're doing. So tell me about your
yeah.
consulting with your business clients. What does that look
Sure,
like? What is that? How do you do that? I mean,
sure,
tell me what you do.
sure.
And then tell me an avatar of
Yeah,
your client. What's your lookalike client?
okay,
What do they look like?
sure. Well, the consulting evolved 15 years ago. I really came in to I was more life coaching, doing the life coaching stuff with sort of, forward thinking individuals. And it was a lot of success stuff. I stayed away from the Christians early on. I think I might have told you that. I didn't want to get corrupted. So I was, but it was great. I was really learning back then how to bring kingdom principle to unbelievers, and walk them, into success, but holistic success. And so it would always, the spiritual aspect of their success we'd always get there. That didn't mean they always came to Christ, but we
Right.
would go there. And so, but that then evolved more. The business people began pulling on me. Initially, it was really about business advice, just kind of sales systems staff, right? That sort of nuts and bolts of business stuff. But then what really happened was my clientele did begin to morph into more kingdom Christian guys, which was great. And what happened was there was always spiritual formation there. I'm wired prophetically, so there was this tension between practical business smarts and then spiritual formation that was really pressing into prophetic intelligence. Just trying to figure out what does kingdom. How do I lead my business in a kingdom framework that's more than just Christianese? Like, because it's got to translate, right? Because the beautiful thing and the terrible thing about church is you can preach 100 sermons and it doesn't really make a difference to anyone, but they'll keep turning up. As you know, in the marketplace, you have 6 meetings with a client and it's not working. You don't get the next meeting, like it's done, right? Because it's brutal. So what happened was the clients started to accelerate into their ability to hear God. Of course, it was an impartational thing. And I think what I began to do by the grace of God is find a sequence that aligned people to kingdom principles and unlock them into supernatural realm. And so then all of a sudden that evolved. I began to mentor and be asked to come in and do some elite team training, leadership stuff, and all the rest. But now, today, bringing it to today, my clients today usually sit from a money perspective as far as turnover. My bandwidth client is about someone running $10 to $50 million a year, right? So 10 to 50 million is their organization. Anywhere from 20 to my biggest client is 600 staff. So anywhere from those sort of that bandwidth. My clients these days really come to me heavier for the spiritual intelligence and the formation thing in them at a supernatural realm. The bonus to them is that I understand business and business language. So what happens is while we're doing spiritual formation, there are also, when they're asking me, Dave, can you stand in intercession with me around this issue with the government and a contract and all the rest, I'm competent in the business realm to understand that. And so in the intercession and the prophetic response, I'm able to calibrate it in a way that's tractional for them. And so really most of my clients now, I would say we would go 70% kingdom revelation, supernatural stuff, and really trying to get prophetic intel, as well as kingdom principle, and about 30% specific, I want to take my business and go from 10 million to 20 million, or, I'm whatever that might look like. And the spectrum, of course, of industry is everything from land developers, agriculture companies, national chains of bakeries, that's one of them that's there, national chain of psychiatric practices. They're really eclectic in that respect. I've got a whole bunch of mental health service suppliers here that I do, but the lead is now, it's changed from what it was. The lead is they do have to be kingdom. I'll do one-offs with probably non-Christian companies.
Sure.
At this point, I've moved away from that probably the last 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about your upbringing. How did you get here, man? Tell me the story. I know it's a good story, but tell me the story. Just give me the background.
The quick version is I jumped into entrepreneurship very early. I was 10.
Wow.
And non-Christian home, bit of a poor background. I just wanted pocket money. So I built a car wash business with a couple of friends at 10, which did really well. But then my father got involved in hospitality and restaurants when I was about 11. So I became the waiter for him, left school at 14
Wow.
to become his business partner because he wanted to buy a cafe that I knew how to operate. He didn't. He was into pizza restaurants. I knew how to operate the cafe because I'd gone and worked for the cafe owners because my dad wasn't paying me properly when I was 12. So so I left him and went and worked for these guys. So he let me leave school. So I became his business partner there. So then from 14 to 30, I had 12 different businesses that I bought and sold, all in the hospitality industry.
Wow.
But my wife she's into pet grooming. And in our mid-20s, we began to build a chain of pet grooming salons, dog grooming salons. And until my late 20s, sorry. And then I took a whole diversion and thought I could do anything. And so I started a stationery company manufacturing like inspirational stationery, which was a magnificent destruction, and I blew it up. I blew it up, and I thank God for that, by the way. I blew it up, and my ego took the biggest hit that I'd ever had. And I went and had a big sulk. And so I said to God, that's it, I'm done. And I went to corporate life and went and worked in a multinational company as a supply chain and logistics, as a kind of a mid-level manager. And at 35, 36, I got a promotion from the company. I got a sponsorship. They wanted me to do an MBA. They were going to sponsor it, send me to university and put me on this global leadership track. And instead of doing that, I actually quit. Wow. I quit because I felt the Lord told me to quit. And he told me, how long will you keep running from your call into business? And I began the consultancy company at that point. Very and then good. That's the history. That's the history of it.
What church are you affiliated with back in Australia? Where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm actually contracted to a church here called Hope Unlimited Church. My senior pastors, Mark and Darlene Check.
Oh, okay.
You probably know that last name, right?
I've heard that name once or twice. Not, yeah.
So that I've got to tell you, that's been a real godsend. I've been with 10 years with them. 10 years. I mean, Mark himself, Mark Check, is the senior pastor. We're a multi-site church. You know, in Australia, we're probably considered one of the larger churches, several thousand members. But Mark himself is the senior pastor and also runs a global media company called 4B Media. So he himself is bivocational. And that was the deal that he and I made 10 years ago when he said to me, I want you to be the business manager. Help me run this thing. And I just said to him, I'll only do it if you pay me for full-time results, not full-time hours in the chair. And you know that I'll build businesses alongside. And he took the deal and he's never changed it ever since. So officially, I'm the business manager of the entire movement. And I'm the marketplace pastor of the 6 campuses, which we have about 200 business families in the 6 campuses. So it's my oversight there. I built an entrepreneur academy inside this church that is now global. It's called the Center of Excellence. So in the entrepreneur academy, you can learn only 2 courses: Kingdom Business and Workplace Leaders. We don't train you to preach. We don't train you to be the kids pastor. We don't train you to be the worship pastor. You can't do any of that. It's purely a marketplace, a center of excellence. And it's online, it's virtual, so people all over the world do it. But then what we do here is 3 times a year we do these intensives. So in February we've got an intensive called Business Toolbox, which we're really just going to talk about money, prosperity, supernatural wealth. Then in the middle of the year, we have a retreat, 2-day retreat, where we bring prophets in. Everybody lays their business down, lays their lives down. We prophesy into their business lives. And then at the end of the year, we have a mastermind where I bring like a a neuro trainer or a mind coach, and we break off self-limiting beliefs, renewal of the mind, all that stuff. So we do that 3 times a year, 3 intensives that we hothouse. We get about, we fill one of our churches with people for 2 days. They pay significant, not significant. They pay good money to come. But that's kind of the rhythm that we're in at the moment. So
very good. Yeah, it's cool, man. How did you connect with Kelly? How did you guys meet?
A spiritual father of mine in the early days was involved with ACAL it's called here, and I was literally carrying his bags, and it came and sat in when Wagner, in the early days when Wagner came, and I loved the revelation. I struggled with the structure that they were trying to perpetuate to capture that revelation. And so when my spiritual father passed away, I really didn't, I was busy in business and all the rest. I really didn't go there. And the guy that was leading the Australian arm of it used to call me every year and invite me to come to their main event. And I went, no. Eventually, I said yes. I said no one year, and the Lord rebuked me and said it's time to go back. Lance Wallno was speaking, and I had lunch with Lance, and I really made the decision that, I need to stop being a critic and probably be a change agent, and that's how then I got connected to Kelly.
Very cool. How long have you been going back? What year was that?
This about 6 years ago now, 6-7 years ago.
Very good.
And then I was made the national convener 2019, just before COVID broke out.
Of Australia.
Of Australia, yeah.
Very good, man. Very good. Very good.
And transitioned it. It was, at the time, it was full of church pastors. Now ACAL in Australia is probably half marketplace leaders and half, marketplace leaders, business, politics, all that space, and half would be, senior leaders of churches, movements in Australia. So it's about.
What does that meeting look like, Dave? What do you guys do in the ACAL meetings? What do you look like?
I dismantled. All they used to do, to be brutally honest, all they used to do was convene a national conference once a year, and then have a couple of little touch points. Before COVID, this is 2019. Before COVID, as I'm going to Dallas, I felt the Lord say to me, "The season of conferences has come to an end." And it'll be councils and tables, right? Not knowing what that meant.
Yeah.
So when Kelly says to me, would you take ACAL? I said to him, only if you let me kill the conference. I said, I'm going to kill the conference, and I'm going to push everyone back to regions and go, hey, I need you, before we think of anything else, we need to go and build apostolically in regions and bring the testimony of that fruit so that we have some validity when we're going to call a national conference and say we have a national vision. Like it's got to be fruit on the ground. So not knowing that I'd go home and then COVID would help us kill all that.
Right.
So what's happened is I've said to the leaders, you need to build regionally. So what happens for us is every 2, like we obviously connect, but every 2 months we come on a Zoom, and I'm asking, tell me the projects that you're working on in your region. Tell me the apostolic advocacy that you're bringing into the ecclesia, or the sphere in which you operate. So we've got some of these leaders now. One of them is the right-hand advisor to a mayor, like your equivalent of a mayor, and he's actually brought her now on staff 2 days a week, and he's called her his community liaison officer, but she's actually his intercessor. Right. Yeah. Another one, which she was a senior pastor in a city, doing a good kind of work with the poor, right? Had been 10, 15 years. I just said to her, I'm not quite sure that you're called respectfully to the church place. So she goes into politics, and she's now the deputy mayor of that region. And in 2 years has brought more kingdom change than she did at 10, 15 years trying to be a pastor in the city, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not against pastors, of course, you know what I'm saying here. But and then one of our guys, Paul Botha, he was there at ICAL. He spoke, I think, on the first day. He's been convening these state apostolic tables. He's got maybe about 24 leaders in the city. I think about 6 of them are marketplace. Then the balance, 18 of them are senior leaders from across all the denominations. And it's not just a unity table. It's not a let's pray for the needs of the city table. It's not that. He's called it an apostolic elders table. And their job is to really discern or figure out what does the Father want as far as kingdom manifested in the city? How does he want that? And then their job is to go and execute or find the people resource, the money resource, the connection resource to go and bring implementation to that. So they're just a couple of the projects that we've been working on, which I think are really gaining traction.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, that's the thing for us, with life leaders. You see the thing behind me. Our model is that, like, how do we do kingdom, right? I don't even like the word apostolic anymore because we butchered it to death, but how do we implement the reign, REIGN? How do we implement the reign of God, the reign of Christ in our communities? All right, that's real. I mean, we have one this weekend. We've got a meeting we're headed to this weekend, and so I text the guys out. I said, "Hey, man, let's do community where the kingdom meets the community. Let's just stay in this zone and try to focus on that." I've been in this church business, whatever you want to call it, my whole life, really. I mean, it's funny, right? December 20th was my 30th anniversary walking with Christ. I forgot about it. But, Pops, my spiritual pops, Dr. Cottle, so he started CLST. So I texted him yesterday, I believe it was. I said, "Pop, it's 30 years ago this month. I got saved. Wow. I gave my heart to Christ December 20th, 1992. And I started CLST about 3 weeks later, and I told him, I said, "This 30 years ago, I started Bible school with you." So anyway, we were chatting, but for us, man, it's about, here's what I want to do. I'll tell you this, Dave. So I don't know how long ago it's been. I could probably pull it up in my notes here if I chose to, but I've been battling the battle of what are we doing? What are we trying to get accomplished, right? So I felt like God told me one morning, he said, "I need you to build a merging lane." And I felt like I knew what that meant. And I saw a little sign. I don't know about Australia, but here we have little diamond-shaped signs. And there's a road, and then there's a merge lane coming just like this. And I saw this sign, right? So he said, "I need you to build me a merge lane." And I said, "Well, tell me what that means." And he said, "I need you to build a lane where church," well, back then, I mean, it's probably been 7, 8 years ago, where church leaders meet market leaders or life, or, marketplace life leaders. He said, "I need these two to meet at the table and have a conversation, and I need it to be a space where all things are congruent and all things are equal. It's not titles and decimals and those kind of things. It's just, men and women having real conversations." So anyway, I'll tell you this story. So I was a member of a large real estate mastermind, because I'm a real estate guy. So we do a lot of real estate. And it really changed my life. I've always been a preacher. I got saved when I was 20 years old, and I started preaching, a year later, right? So my only speaking was that, right? I'd take a script, I preach, pray, and prophesy. That's what I knew how to do. So anyway, when I joined this mastermind, bro, I had to get up and speak, and it was coming out of the crash, 2008 crash. So it was right on the back of that. It was 2010 or 11. And so I didn't even have my mojo back. I didn't have my rhythm. I felt like a douche. I felt like a dud, a failure. I'm trying to build something back, and I'm still in debt, and I'm still getting calls from all this other stuff. Anyway, long story short, but I went through this mastermind, and it really gave me a bandwidth on how to speak without using the text, right?
Okay.
How to bring life. So what's funny is when I started, man, I was freaked out of my mind. I was nervous. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to speak. I stayed, I think I was in for 5 or 6 years. I was in this group. So I remember the last year I was in the group, the guy who owns the group called me one morning because they were getting really busy, right? They were getting really packed.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
they were growing. I mean, they were really growing. And they only had so many speaking spots, right? So I was like, look, man, I don't need to speak. I had already grown accustomed to it at this point. I was an old guy in the group by now. And so
Sure.
I told the COO, which it would have been, I said, man, I don't need to speak. So if you're jammed up on time, don't worry about me. Just, let some of the new guys, they need help. So let them get up there and speak. He was like, oh man, I appreciate it, D. And that's good. So then the next morning, it's 7 o'clock. Jason, who owns the group, calls me up. And he says, D, man, he used some different terms that we don't use in church. But he's like, what the heck, bro? I said, what do you mean, bro? He said, man, why are you not speaking? I said, man, I'm just trying to make room. I don't need anything, I'm just trying to give some room to people. He said, no, man, you don't understand. I don't care what you talk about. I don't care what you speak on. He said, but when you speak, you change the atmosphere in the room. I need you to get up and speak. I don't care what you talk. You can talk about shoestrings if you want to. But anyway, I tell you that story because what happened to me is that, when I started in, I'm a preacher, right? And I still am, right? I know how to do what I do if we want to do it. I was a preacher only. And then by the end of this, God had reframed me and made me have the ability to speak in boardrooms and have the ability to speak. And what was really cool about this, Dave, is that I had the ability at the time, and I say at the time, God had transitioned me to be able to talk to anybody, anyone on any scope or sphere. And I had learned how to bring the principles that we know, right? I had learned to bring this into the mix. And so it was really, really cool. So then a few years after that, I've been out of that mastermind for a while now, but a few years after that, man, I've been framing life leaders for a while, probably 15 years, right? Trying to figure out what is this thing that God is talking about. And then when he started talking to me about the merging lane, I still didn't know what it meant, right? I was like, yeah, cool. That's a good word. I just have no idea what that means, right? You know how that goes. So, but now, man, we're really starting to get our flavor of this. Like, what are we assigned to do? We obviously have a Bible school. I think I told you that we have a Bible school that Doc Cottle gave me. It's an online school. We're changing the name of this, trying to change it to Life Leaders University, but which will be really cool. But one of the things I've been working on, because I'm a scholar, I'm really a scholar, man. I mean, I love the book. I've been studying the Bible my whole grown-up life. I'm 30 years deep in this thing, so I know how to do that. And what I'm really become good at now is taking the deep principles of God, right? Because I'm Greek and Hebrew, I'm Doc Cottle's son, so you got to know Greek and Hebrew, and you got to do all the stuff, right? But anyway, man, just to take all of that stuff and bring it into a practicum, right? Like, well, here's what that means. So I did a course. I have a course that I'm actually going to do it right here in the studio. I have a teaching on the kingdom of God, the noun and the verb. And God showed me something, I don't know, man, it's probably been a year ago. I started working on this. And we're good at the noun, right? We're good at the kingdom, right? Where it's castles and scepters and kings and all of these things, right? You say kingdom, my mind thinks of heaven for whatever reason, right? But most of the New Testament where Jesus said kingdom and John the Baptist brought up the word kingdom, it's the verb form, and it's the action of the reign. That's why I use the reign, the R-E-I-G-N, the reign of God. So now I'm in a place, or we all are in a place now where I'm going, how do we institute the reign of Christ? One of our guys asked me, he said, man, are you a dominionist? And I said, man, I don't like labels and I don't like boxes, first and foremost. So I don't want anybody to try to box me into something to make me become what, is comfortable for your mindset. But the reality is that's what I told him. I said, I lean that way, right? Like my mind is coming to a place now, Dave, to where I see this culmination of the two. I see heaven and earth culminating, right? So I keep going. I don't know if you've ever read Darrin Fromke. Have you ever read his books, Fromke, Fromke?
No, I haven't.
Really, really, really scholarly guy, man. You will love his stuff. He's got a book called The Ultimate Intention. He's got a 3-series book, but The Ultimate
Okay.
Intention is the first book. And it really kind of gave me a barometer to try to take religion out of the equation and go, well, what did God have in his mind? Like if you take me back to Adam, what was God thinking about? And I get the fall and I get all that stuff, but if we take all that out of the equation, what was God thinking about? And the farther I go down this rabbit hole, the more I see that God was interested in Adam being a partner in his business.
Yeah.
And his business is reigning in the earth. I'm going to do a teaching this weekend. I won't go too deep in this, man, but so in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it's the summation. Moses was trying to say everything that is, was, or ever will be, God did it. Second verse says, the earth, and there's no the in the Hebrew, it just says earth was, and that word was is the word haya, H-A-Y-A. And it's the word for being. It's the I am, right? When God says I am that I am, that's the word. So it's a being word. It's a state. Tony Robbins would call it the state word, right? It's the state of, right? Which I love Tony Robbins. So anyway, second verse is earth, the state of the earth was bohu tohu. So it was formless, void, and dark. So I just got this week, right? So God's intent was to create darkness, formlessness, and void, and shove Adam into it and say, hey, imagine what this could be. Now go create reigning and order where the chaos reigns. Yeah. And so if I go back to that, then I come to today's model and I go, well, nothing's changed in God's mind.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. God hasn't changed his mind to the fact Jesus just brought us the model and said, look, I'm going to finish the stuff you messed up. But God hasn't changed his mind.
Yeah.
Right? The earth he gave to the sons of Adam.
Yeah.
To reign over the works of his hand. So when I look at all of that, man, and I look at what we are and what we're becoming, one of the things I have a problem with our church meetings, like, and not iCal in particular, because I go to a lot of church meetings. But dude, we just keep circling, bro. We keep circling the wagons. We keep doing the same thing we did last year and the same thing we did 10 years ago. And none of our cities are getting transformed. Yeah. And in Matthew 13:33, here's what he said. The kingdom, the reign of God, the reign of heaven is like leaven. That a woman, and when you look in the Greek, so he said a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal. And the description that Jesus used was, this girl is a professional baker. She's not Susie around the corner trying to bake a cake. She actually knows what she's doing because she measured out her meal and she knew how to get this cake in this loaf that she was baking. She knew how to make this right. So it says that she took the leaven, the kingdom, the reign of heaven, and hid it into the meal until all of it was leavened. And that was the epitome of the kingdom of God. So when I look at that, man, I am 100% interested in how do we get this reign in every city, into the mayor's office, the city council, right? I mean, we're all in that now. I've got guys locally who, as a matter of fact, the mayor is a buddy of mine, and I'm gonna do a podcast with him right here in this set. Nice. But dude, I'm trying to get us to where they know our name. And when they have a question about how do we build, the guys are calling me now, Dave, going, hey man, how do I build this city and drop, this grant money without these people calling gentrification on us? And yeah, sure. And so I said, hey man, I got that model. Come to the office, let's talk about it. So he comes by the office and I draw it on the board. I said, this is how you do it. It's just 1 inch at a time. You don't try to eat the whole loaf at the same time. That's right. That's right. Yeah. What's funny, man, is that I can preach, pray, and prophesy, dude. I've been doing that for 30 years. That's fun for me. I love that stuff. But man, looking at my history, I'm looking and whatever, maybe we're just a dumb bunch, but I'm going, man, we're not making an impact by doing these church meetings. And I love it. I think we should do it. I'm happy about it. But it has to be, it has to become to the fact that we're doing a meeting to merge and build the bridge between us, because difference equals distance, and distance is difference. And if we take away the difference, then the distance is gone, and then we can have a real conversation about, hey man, I'm struggling. How do, like my mayor here, how do I do such and such and this and that without somebody throwing a stone at us? I go, man, I got an answer.
Yeah.
Here it is. We were having a conversation the other day, and they started talking about policy, and I said, well, you guys are trying to build policy without principle. And a policy without principle is just politics and emotional hype. You got to have a principle that lasts. It's got to work in Australia. It's got to work in North Carolina. It's got to work. It's got to work in. That's a principle. That's the stuff we actually have, right? But they're really not asking us the questions. And I'm at a place now at 50 years old, bro, where I'm going, man, I want these guys that have the chairs. I want the ones that are sitting in the chair to call me up and say, hey, Darrin, how do I do this? That's what I want.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the mayor. I don't want to be on city council.
No.
But I want them to say, I got a problem. How do we solve it?
Yeah.
And to me, that's where the kingdom, that's where the reign of God comes to our cities. That's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear. No, I mean, I think really what you're talking about, I love that, by the way. I love the thought of dominion in the sense that I'm the same as you, but what does that mean, right? The way that I see it is coming back to your creation space. God creates when he creates the heavens and the earth. He doesn't create them perfect. He creates them good.
That's right.
One of the bases of the word good means full of potential.
There it is.
And then when you drill down into, and then he gives man dominion, right, over. The word dominion, one of the principles of that is the ability to take something and bring it to its fullest expression.
Yep.
Right. So you think about that, you go, yeah. So God makes creation pregnant with potential, and then he gives man the job of actualizing the fullness of creation, the fullness of his, and in Romans 1, Paul says that the ultimate job of creation is to declare the glory of God.
Yep.
So it makes, so in that respects, I am a dominionist in that respects.
Yep.
I believe in the reconciliation of all things. I believe the cross wasn't just a restoration of sin, the sin issue, but that it penetrated beyond sin and to the corruption that sin brought to this pregnant creation.
Right. The cosmos. Yes.
For me, dominion is the actualizing of everything that Jesus restored to us on the cross at a cosmological level. So in that respect, I am a dominionist. But I also think that, Darrin, like you said, when somebody says kingdom, they think heaven. A lot of the time when people say kingdom, they think church, ecclesiastical church.
That's right.
And I think that really what we're doing here, I've seen it in my studies through church history, all the way from the early church to St. Patrick, to Charlemagne, to some of the Orthodox guys, to even some of I know they call it the Dark Ages, but in some of the Catholic history, and then even into Luther, where I think the greatest scandal was this thought of private religion, that religion was supposed to be confined in a private space, right? Yeah. So all of a sudden, all that did was take religion, the voice of God out of politics, out of civic society. It was like, no, you guys figure out heaven, and we'll do the stuff here on the earth. But the reality is, the earth is just an outpost of the kingdom anyway.
That's it, man. That's it.
Right. So I think that's. I hear what you're saying. I actually I don't like the posting of prophetic words on social media. That's not a great. I mean, whatever, encourage people, but when I don't have a prophetic word every morning. I probably once every 2 years, God will put a burden on me for 2 months, and a word will grow inside of me, and then usually what happens is I'll only then release that word if I feel to leaders in the body of Christ. I don't go and post it on leaders of movements or whoever's in my sphere that the word is appropriate to, and then they can judge it and weigh it and all the rest. And so I did that this year. It's called the the word's called the season of the ravens, right? The coming season of the ravens. And it speaks to what I believe that whole Elijah with Ahab, drought on the land. Then Elijah gets taken to the brook Chebrith. He's sustained by the brook and he's fed by ravens morning and evening, right?
Yeah.
And I felt the Lord say to me that the earth will continue in drought and calamity for a season. I really believe over the next kind of 7 years that the wars, all that is the disruption in the markets is going to remain there. But there's this opportunity for the sons of the kingdom to be sustained supernaturally in the flow of the Holy Spirit. But the ravens are really interesting because the ravens were an unclean bird, right? Deuteronomy 14.
Right.
Imagine Elijah, who's he knows his Bible, right?
Right.
The first day the raven comes with meat in his mouth. I reckon he would have tried to kill it or rebuke it or whatever, call down fire on it. It's like, no, send me a dove.
Right.
Don't send me a raven. But then he figures out by the Spirit of the Lord that the raven is the provision of heaven for him. And the raven comes and gives him meat in the morning and meat in the evening. And here's what I really believe, Darrin. I believe that in this period of natural drought on the earth, calamity, economics, all that sort of disruption, that the church, if the church that is in sync with the Holy Spirit is going to receive provision. I'm talking about like opportunity, wisdom, new strategies and structures, but they're not going to look like doves, normal churchy kind of what we would expect, right? They're actually going to come at the beak of ravens, which really speaks to the marketplace. I actually believe that the ravens are going to carry like new technologies, right? We're seeing all this AI, the digital space, the crypto, all of the new kind of machinations there. I believe the ravens have food for the sons of the kingdom that can receive it. And what will happen is it will position them so that when the brook dries up and the ravens stop coming, that they're actually positioned. I believe God is trying to position his church over the next 6-7 years for our trajectory over the next 20, 30 years of kingdom advance. But it's not going to come through doves, what we think we know, going to come through really interesting mechanisms, even not just from other sons of the kingdom, but it might even be from people that aren't sons of the kingdom, but are friends of the kingdom. Because not everyone, I've got people who aren't saved who are friends of the kingdom, and they actually favor what I'm doing because they resonate with the principles, even though they as yet aren't in Christ.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So I really think that's where, people such as yourself and what you're doing there and what's been forming with life leaders and in some respects what I'm doing and how I'm trying. I really believe that we're in this moment where, you and I aren't naive to the rumblings that are going on and everything else that's there, but we're kind of we're in this place of the brook of Chebrith, right? The water of the Holy Spirit. And because we're not chasing away the ravens, right?
That's good.
But we're going, well, what if God's in a thinking that as the body of Christ, we haven't maybe been comfortable with for at least a couple of 100 years, which would be right.
100%.
I think there's something there. I think there's something there.
Well, I do too. And you just finished up my weekend teaching when you said creation was God made creation good and not perfect. And it goes it goes back to what you just said right there, right? You go, our mentality goes, well, God doesn't create anything dark. Well, and then Elisha could sit there and go, well, the raven's a dirty bird. I can't eat the dirty bird. Right? The dirty bird can't help me. One of the things that God told me years ago, man, it's funny you said that because I had this, and it's been years ago. He said, there's going to come a time where I'm going to need my people to shine in the middle of darkness. So you got to get ready to dig. You got to dig the ditch so that when the rain comes, bro, listen, we don't shine when all the lights are on. We only shine when the lights go out. So for me, I think for us, right, we've got to be dynamic leaders. Because here's the real deal. You've been in business long enough. No matter what the economy does, somebody's getting rich. Someone is getting rich, right? If the market goes up, the market goes down, someone is getting rich. The real question is, why is it not the son of the kingdom? Why are we not placed in the right place? So I think what you just said is 100% accurate. I think God is reestablishing us to be in the right position to say, there's coming a time around the corner. I need you to be able to shine. Because I believe, my personal belief, it's not just I think you nailed the word. I think there's going to be times where there's droughts and they're going to say, man, how do y'all have so much in the drought? Like, how did you do that? How are you making all of this work when everyone else is going backwards? That has to be us. I think we're on the cusp of that. If you read The Fourth Turning, I don't know if you read the book, The Fourth Turning.
I've downloaded it. It's book great. Number 3 on the pile.
Yeah, it's great, man. It's really, I've probably read it 3 or 4 times by now, but it's a great book. These guys wrote this book in the late 90s and they nailed where we are right now. They nailed it from 2008 to 2030. I mean, they had it down to a science. And it's our generation, the X generation, that are going to be summoned to lead after we get through with this turn. You know, so from what is the X generation, 68 to 82 or something? I don't know what it is, but something like that. Yeah, somewhere in that neck of the woods. You know what I mean? So what they say, what their premise is, that they said in 1997 there's going to be mid 2000s to 2010 there's going to be a massive crisis, and it should be an international crisis. And that crisis, every turn lasts about 20 to 25 years. Which puts us somewhere around 2030. And then when you look at it, you go, all the fluctuations of where we are right now, all the all the AI that's coming out in the middle of this turn, right? And all of this stuff. Because there's this thing in me, right? And it's probably in you as well, where I feel like, man, God is really blessing me, but I'm not really settled. I still feel like we're in a turn. I can't articulate it. I can't prophesy it, but I feel like we're in a turn. It's just, I know we're good. We're blessed. We're making tons of money. God's been good to us, but I don't feel like we're settled. I still feel like we're in a turn, like this thing is still turning. So the premise of the book is in around about 28 or 30, 2028 or 30, we're going to come out of this. And then the X generation is their time that they're going to be summoned to lead. And here's what they said. It's an American book, but here's what he said. It's at that time that the generation that's summoned to lead determines what the country will then become. So their premise is, whatever the X generation after this turn, whatever we decide America will become, is what the nation will become. And then the middle line of the preface is that there will be, usually there's something in the turn, like children or something that everybody can rally behind. It says, yeah, we can get behind this. And there's always a hero that stands up. And it's a really good book, man. You need to read the book. It's a phenomenal book. Yeah. But I have this, I don't know how to explain it, bro. I just have this weird sense in me that in all the good things that are happening, right? And all the blessings that God is doing in my life. And I'm just overwhelmed by how blessed we've been. I'm overwhelmed. I still feel this unction inside, like, no, we're still in the turn. Like, I don't know how to say it. Like I can't really settle it in. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going fast and we're accelerating, but we're still in the curve. We're still in the curve. And I don't know why, but I just can't settle this thing down. But I feel like God is going to, on the backside, bro, God's going to raise us and say, here you are, it's your time to lead. I need you to have something to say when it's time to lead. And I need you to have the ears of the people that have the chairs that are leading. That's real right there. We got to have the ears.
That's real.
If we're not in the chairs, we have to have people that trust us in the chair.
Yeah. So look, sometimes the position of influence is greater than the position of power. So long as you sit in the position of influence, you have something to say that undergirds those that are in the position of power. Because there's a whole bunch of things that Daniel could do in Babylon as the advisor to Nebuchadnezzar that Nebuchadnezzar would not have been able to do, even though he was a despot ruler.
Correct.
And so, but the point was that Daniel was able, I love the thought that it says Daniel was gifted in the unpacking, or it doesn't mean unpacking, but the interpreting of, I think it says like enigmas and hard sayings.
Wow.
This thought of enigmas, and an enigma is a mystery that doesn't have a logical solution within the context of the paradigm that's trying to solve it. And so it needs to unlock an enigma, you actually have to touch a dimension outside of the dimension that the enigma is in, right? And impose a greater revelation, and that unlocks the enigma, and which is exactly what Daniel does.
Yep.
Because Nebuchadnezzar is trying to unlock the enigma to rule the world, like he's trying to do that, but all he has is Babylonian culture, and he has the kingdom of darkness. So Daniel imposes a greater overwhelm of a greater kingdom, which is why Nebuchadnezzar says to him, 10 times better. But I think it's important because Daniel is not naive to the principles of Babylon and also the sorcery world, right? Which is what Daniel 1 is all about. And I think, Darrin, that you're right. I think leadership moving forward, talking about kingdom leadership, has to go beyond ecclesiastical realities, beyond church planning models, beyond Sunday service stuff, all the stuff that we know.
Sure.
And so that's where, I find it interesting in the vehicle that God has given you with life leaders, just about, and also your context in the in America, which is different to mine here. There's advantages of your US context in scope. To some degree, there's an advantage of your God culture, but there's also a great disadvantage in all that as well.
Agreed.
And so it'll be interesting. I think it's just interesting what God is doing with you around the whole merge lane and your ability to do that. I mean, I think you've got to fight bigger religious devils than I'll ever have to fight here, because our ones just aren't as ancient as your ones.
That's true.
Yours are more integrated.
That's true. They are, yes.
Than ours.
Yeah. And when we look at church as a whole, when we look at especially the word church, right? We've inherited a Catholic mentality of what church is, and we've made it into a kuriakon, which is a house. And that's not what Jesus did at all. Jesus's model was, I'm going to build an ecclesia. And here's what it is. In the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked them, who do you say that I am? And yada, yada, yada. And then he said, on this rock. And he said, I'll build my ecclesia and the gates of hell. Well, what's funny about that, Dave, is that right behind him was a cave. And that is the cave in Caesarea Philippi that they assumed every dark being, every demonic structure came up out of. They thought that was the gate to the underworld, if you will.
Underworld.
and Jesus stood there and he said, I'm going to build an ecclesia right in the mouth of hell, right in the mouth of the underworld. I'm going to build it. We've built structures and mentalities, and this is a big piece for me. I mean, we have to fight this big time. The good thing about it is I'm a Pentecostal preacher, so I'm good. I've done it all, right? You can't really, when it comes to church, man, I've built church and done it all. We've done it all. So, but the reality becomes when we get back to the roots of what Jesus is trying to build, he's building a movemental people. And that's why I think we kind of hijacked the word apostolic a little bit in the last decade and a half, because apostolic is only the root of it. And you go back to the Hebraic mentality, it's about sent. It's just about sent. I mean, that's it. So we've made it a quote unquote title, and it's not a title. It's a position of movement. So when we look at the word ecclesia, and I'm trying to get us away from kuriakon, this household. We call it. I was there Sunday, and we were in worship, and who's glad they came into the house of God? Well, that's not a Hebraic mentality. A Hebraic mentality is a household. It wasn't a structure. It was a household. And my neighbor is my brother and my nephew and my cousin, and this is a household, right? That's how they've seen it. And that's the people that Jesus was talking to. And when he said ecclesia, they knew exactly what he meant, right?
Yeah.
It's a governmental people that went from one government into an uncharted region, and they began to
Yeah.
culturize that region with Rome that they were sent from. And that's
That's right.
apostolic. If you want to boil it down, that's the truth of apostolic. And I think we lost that a little bit. Here's what I want to say with all that, man. And I can't say it in public, so don't let this get out.
Sure.
We have made apostolic, and we really have made the microphone the pinnacle of quote unquote kingdom life. And until we break that model, until we break that mental model, what I want to do is raise pastors and preachers and what you and I call fivefold. I don't even like that anymore. But people that are assimilated to church work every day or life work in the body every day.
Sure.
Man, I want to raise these people up to where they don't have financial needs. If I get you get a guy like me, hey, Darrin, I want you to come to Australia and speak at our conference. I go, cool, man. Let me make sure I got my passport. I don't need anything. The events we do, the events we do, bro, they go, man, how much what is this going to cost? I said, man, that's on you. We don't have any charge here. We don't do that. We're coming to give. We're coming to give. We got enough money that if we have to pay for our own stuff, we're fine. Don't worry about us. We got it. Right. So, and that's the cool, but when you get in this place where we don't need anything, I'm just coming to give you the life that God gave to us. And we hope we bless you and leave you with something. If we could raise up quote unquote body people, body church, what we call church leaders in that context, man, where they don't need anything, everything changes to me, man. The institutional model that we inherited from the Catholic forefathers that framed us has to be broken down so that we can become an ecclesia. I don't see institution and ecclesia living side by side.
No,
I think we've
oil and water.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think we've got to come out of this, and I don't see us coming out of this until we can have real pastors that don't need any money. They're taking. And the Mormons got it down to a science. I don't know if you've looked at their model. They got it down to a science. Their theology is whack off. But dude, their model is spot on. It's spot on.
Yeah. We got a guy here in Australia, a guy called David Orton, who was, a bit controversial guy, but I think 20 years ago, he was probably the foremost prophet in the nation. He's an intellectual as well, which is a good combination.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book called Snakes in the Temple. And it was a rebuke to the ecclesiastical system. And anyway, I went and met him a couple of times, flew into his state just to go and literally have a coffee with him. I felt like the Lord and he said something really profound because he saw what I was doing. And he said, David, he said to me, your greatest challenge is that you will have senior leaders that will absolutely agree with your revelation of ecclesia. The problem is that their financial pay structure is anchored in their ecclesiastical model. And so even though they agree with you, they won't be able to transition because what they're going to do in that is torpedo all they know of their own financial security. And he said, you just need to realize that. He said, so until you break that hook or create a different model, he said, you're going to he said, you're just going to find resistance. And, I got to tell you, Darrin, it's so true that the pastors that send me hate mail, I realize what's going on. It's because I'm scaring them because the very thing that is their respectfully their income, I'm shaking the tree on, and so they're reacting in fear. Like I get that. So I hear you as far as we need to change the economic realities of how the money flows to the fivefold leadership, how that works. Because if we don't, we're just going to continue to get pushback on it.
We drown.
So let me ask you this question around life leaders this year. So with life leaders as a sort of a work, you're going after who? You're going after, you want to speak to marketplace people in regions or in churches, or who do you want to go up?
Right now,
who are you going after with life leaders?
Well, we're reframing. I shouldn't say reframing. we are framing up
Yeah.
the model of how anyone can get in. So right now we're using what's in front of us, right? We're going, we're church people, right? We're a bunch of we're a bunch of preachers that see a revelation. So we're going to churches, and that's our model. This weekend we're going to be in a church, and that's our model thus far.
So will you bring training into that church for for like life leadership and success and is that what you'll do? Right.
Okay. So we're doing both, and so Pops is coming with us, Doc Cottle's coming with us. Friday night he's going to do a theological training. He'll do what he does. Okay. Saturday morning we're going to do life leaders only. We're going to do life leaders teaching. On the back side of that, we're bringing in Crest Fund, which is the ability for anybody to invest and become an investor, which is a big part of what God has assigned us to. So we're talking about life leaders. What I'm going to talk about is how the kingdom meets the community. Let's get out. Let's talk. Let's get involved. We've got a political guy here who runs political campaigns. He actually ran the campaign for the governor of Oklahoma. He ran that campaign and got him elected. We got him involved. He comes and does we usually give people 30 minutes time slots. Sure. So we'll bring him out. He's not coming this weekend, but we'll bring him out on the political side, saying, "Hey, here's what we can do." Here, funny thing, right? So I mean, I'm involved politically, just as a consultant, but I didn't know this. And Amon is the guy's name, and he told us the last time we were together that there were 500 and some odd thousand political seats, from school boards to all kinds of different things all over the country. And most of the seats in every city, in every county, in every community are run uncontested. People just don't run. Right. Mm-hmm. So we bring that piece in, and we're just trying to bridge this gap, bro. If you've got wisdom, you got some science on this. I'm a preacher. Right? That's what I grew up doing. That's what I know. I'm a business guy. I've got successful business, obviously. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to bridge this gap and build this merging lane where we can bring together all formats. And we've got a coaching model we're starting this year. Me and Don. You met Don. You met Don at ICAP.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So we're gonna start coaching some guys. I mean, it's a pretty high level coaching deal. So they got to have money to get in. So it's not for average Joes.
Sure.
But we're doing some new things this year where we'll go to this church. They'll have 200 folks there, and we're creating a regional model where the church itself or the pastor himself can be a quote unquote regent representative. And then he could start bringing people into life leaders. So now we're doing things like this Zoom. We'll take bits and tidbits of this and put it into our Dropbox where people can go see you and I have a conversation about these things. So these are the things that we're doing, but our base today is church people and church folks. That's who we have. Right. That's who knows us. That's who we know. And we're just trying to create a language of merge, bro. That's really, if I had to nail it down, we're creating a language of merge. That's really what we're doing. I've got some really cool guys in the business world who are down for coming in and having conversations. I've got Sean McCloskey is one of my good friends, and he runs a collective mastermind called Leadership Boardroom. And he does really cool things about how to find your life's purpose and your center of focus and all those things. So he wants to come in, help some pastors on that and different things. So we're just trying to format this thing, man. Who is our avatar? Who is our sweet spot? Well, our sweet spot is the pastor who's somewhere between 100 and 1,000. That's our guy.
Okay.
That's really our guy, right? And we just want to bring some arms of resource into his life. I'll give you an example. We got what I would call a 80s or 90s charismatic church in Houston, Texas, right?
Yeah.
There's still that style of church. Great, phenomenal, outrageously cool people, man. Just salt of the earth people. Well, the pastor has been there for 20 some years, right? So he has no retirement other than what we've done for him and helped him do. And we just set him up. They had tons of money in the bank. It's a very successful church. They had too much money in the bank, which we don't like, right? We go, hey, man, you can't have $2 million in the bank. That's just being a bad steward at this point, right? So anyway, we go in. And we go in.
I was going to say, not the way it depreciates at this point.
Exactly,
That's
right.
a liability.
You're losing 160 grand a year right now. So anyway, we go in and we say, look, man, this guy's been here 20 years. Let's do a retirement. He doesn't have anything. He's in his 60s. Let's do a retirement plan for this guy. And here it is. If he does this and he stays this, let's put away $500,000. Let's put it in Crest Fund for him. They put 500 grand in Crest Fund for him. It's growing. The church still owns the asset. The asset is still the church's. The investment is still there. So if he goes sideways, it's a wrap. He's out. But if he does his deal, man, and he stays for the duration, then that 500 plus anything it accumulates is his retirement package. Sure. So we're doing that, man. I've got 2 pastors like that. I've got one other guy that we're trying to work with. So, I mean, we're just trying to help where we can, bro. I'm doing all I can do, and God is adding. He's adding to us as we go, right? Again, this is why I wanted to have this conversation as well. But I'm just trying to build this merge lane, bro, so we can stop the distance and the difference, right? I don't like the Catholic model that we own right now as a church body in America. I don't like the Catholic model that we own. I want to see ecclesias, right? I want to see ecclesias all over the nation and all over the world. That's what I want to see. Whether it's city councils or attorney groups, right? Whatever it is. Or real estate investors or builders and developers, like whatever it is, man, I don't care. I just want to see God's reign in the earth, because I am a dominionist by nature, and I just believe that if we do right, then we can consume it. And he is, because at the end of it, Paul said all things are consumed back into him. So, that's where we are. And so our avatar right now is just those churches, man, that we know. I'm doing some new stuff this year, man. I'm doing some developments for some churches that have excess land. We've got some really cool stuff that we just implemented, and we're going to help them take some of their raw dirt and put a community right on site. Boom, you got 25 acres that we can span off. Let's take 25. Let me put 350 families in here, and I'll put a dent in your debt, or I'll put some cash in your bank account. So that's what we're doing.
It's great. Yeah, we just took here in this city, we just took 3 hectares of land, 7.6 million, and we put 2 development applications. We're about to put 2 development applications. One half of it's got a big warehouse. We're going to change that to a business center that's actually going to have the church in it. It's going to have the church. We're going to build the city a theater. Nice. A 600-seater theater that's a commercial reality that the church will then use. But the other half of the land, we're actually putting in a development for 300 apartments.
There you go.
And because the reality is, even if we don't build an apartment, we could sell the development application and half the land for 15 million, which would pay out the loan and then build this other business center, or we become involved in the development of the units as well, which would be about 150 million with partners, and the church gets a percentage, of course, of that. So we're on your wavelength.
That's there exactly what we're doing right there. That's exactly what we're doing. So we're coming in. I have some big money players in the States, and they're looking for land that they can build 350 units on. So we're going to do one of 2 things. We're either going to develop it and build it ourselves, and then just pay the church, or we're going to climb the hill for the rezone and the restructuring and the layout, and then we'll just sell it to a developer, and then they'll drop 300, 400 families on site. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing, man. Exactly.
Oh man, yeah, we're on the same wavelength there. Yeah, because the question that we had was not what does the church in 2030 look like, but what does as in the church, I'm talking about it facility wise, what does it look like in 2050?
Yeah, man.
Right? Like what is that?
Yeah.
What are we building there? Because if we're just building respectfully cathedrals, then we'll have the same I'm talking about contemporary, charismatic Pentecostal, will have the same thing that we knock the traditional churches about, which is cathedrals that are prime land that are utilized 10% of the week, that really don't have any engagement. They're irrelevant to the community. And all
Yes.
that happens is councils push back on those developments,
Yep.
going, we don't want you to tie up land for the next 50 years
Yep.
that has no benefit outside of private religion to our city.
Agreed,
right?
man.
Like,
100%.
yeah.
We've got a church. I don't know if you're a golfer, but we've got a church in Augusta, Georgia,
Right.
where the Masters is played. And they are literally 30 feet from the Masters. They have the
Wow.
most prime real estate you've ever seen in Augusta. They have offered these folks as anything. Really, it's kind of whatever do you want? What do you want for us to? She has 15 or 17 acres, and they would probably write her a check for 30 or 40 million dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we go, and I go, well, this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. You've got 250 people in a room twice a week. And you've got $30 million worth of dirt. Take these 200 people down the street, build you a church, and sell this to them, right? Let them get that money, and then let's go invest it, and let's build and build and build. But no, we sit on it for Jesus. I've got a local pastor right here that's got 100 acres. And I told him the other day, I said, listen, man, and they're never going to use it. They've got a 4,000 people, 100 acres. They're never going to use it. And I'm going, man, let's take 25 of this and build an apartment complex. I'll put $2 million down on your debt when we're done.
Yeah.
And you're none the wiser. Like it's baffling, but you know, and I know, you've been in this long enough, and I've been in this long enough. We as church people, and I was the same way when I was a church guy.
Sure.
We're going to build a city for Jesus all the time. And, unfortunately, 30 years later, you still have 100 acres and you still have 3,000 people, which is great. I'm not mad about that. But we could have done something with that land 30 years ago, right? And done something real, systemic in the creation of the reign of the kingdom of God. We could have built something. But religious mindsets, just like the Catholics, they go, we can't, this is our land. We can't sell it. This is Jesus's land. Yeah. So I agree with you, man. We're there with you on that. I'm going to these churches.
John Kelly says one of the strategies that churches should have about taking their city is to buy it, right?
Real talk.
You gotta have that's dominion, right?
Real talk.
Like buy it. I mean, that's what go back into church history. That's what Calvin was trying to do at Geneva. I mean, that's what there is. I've been to Portugal. I saw how the Catholic Church tried to buy the prime land. It fell short, but I knew what they were after.
Right.
I think it's got to be part of the strategy. And I agree with you. Sitting on 100 acres of land with a small congregation is a mismanagement, I think, of kingdom assets. Because at the end of the day, it's the king's assets.
That's exactly.
And so if you're not maximizing that,
Right.
No, I hear you, man. It's great. I love what you're doing, Darrin.
Yeah, man.
Love what you're pressing towards.
I agree, and I love what you guys are doing, man. What you're doing over there sounds so familiar to us, man. I mean, it sounds like a bleed off. That's why I wanted to connect and chat and just kind of, do what we can. So whatever we can do together, I'm all for it. I think it would be really cool.
Sure.
I would love for you to be in the States more. That would be really good. But I get it. So just let me know, man. Stay in the loop with us and stay in the loop with me. Let's keep communicating and keep chatting through some of this stuff, man. And then whatever we can do, we're always here. You know that. So you just let me know.
Yeah, great. I look forward to it, man. Like I said, I like it. I think we're drinking of the same stream.
Yeah.
And it is respectfully, not because I prophesied it, but it is we're in the season of the ravens, and so this is our day to think in these realms. So let's see what God does with it.